Three ancient stories. One revolutionary truth about human resilience. What indigenous peoples have always known about transformation is exactly what modern humans need to become anti-fragile. The faith excavation. Creation as ongoing process. Three indigenous nations. Three emergence stories. One mind-bending pattern that redefines everything you think you know about human origins and resilience. The Lakota tell of emerging from Wind Cave, Makaonie, where the earth literally breathes. But here's what most people miss. The first people who emerged were transformed into buffalo as punishment for their disobedience. This wasn't destruction. It was the beginning of the most sacred relationship in Lakota culture. The Pite Oyate, the Buffalo Nation, are their relatives, not symbolically, literally. The Inuit speak of Sedna, whose severed fingers became the sea mammals that sustain life. Violence transformed into sustenance. Trauma became the foundation of survival. Every hunt is a negotiation with this history. Every seal a piece of the ancestor, who feeds them through her sacrifice. The Māori describe the separation of Rangi and Papa, Sky Father and Earth Mother, by their children who needed space to grow. Creation through the violence of separation. Yet every morning mist is Papa's sigh. Every rainfall Rangi's tears. The wound of creation never heals. It just becomes the rhythm of existence. Notice the pattern emerging? These aren't feel-good origin stories. They're sophisticated instructions for building humans who understand that creation and destruction are the same force. That transformation requires breaking apart what was to make space for what will be. This is the foundational faith that makes anti-fragility possible. Creation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process of transformation. Transformation as sacred technology. From those three emergence stories comes a logic that completely flips Western thinking about strength and survival. Where Western logic says avoid pain and maintain stability, Indigenous emergence logic says something radical: pain and instability. They're the raw materials of evolution. Let me show you how this works. The Lakota emergence story encodes precise instructions. Disobedience to rigid authority triggers transformation. Think about this. The people who stayed underground, they remained unchanged, safe but stuck. The people who dared to emerge, they faced punishment, but they became the source of life for all future generations. That buffalo transformation wasn't punishment. It was sacred technology. Technology for creating permanent relationship between human and more than human worlds. Sedna's story goes even deeper. Those severed fingers don't just become sea animals. They become the renewable foundation of Inuit survival. Every time hunters take a seal, they're participating in the ongoing creation process. They're not extracting resources. They're maintaining relationship with the ancestor whose transformation makes life possible. The violence of separation becomes the logic of regenerative reciprocity. This creates humans who expect transformation. Humans who understand that breaking apart is often the first step to becoming more. Where Western logic builds systems to avoid failure, Indigenous emergence logic builds systems that transform failure into foundation. The stories aren't teaching people to be tough enough to survive trauma. They're teaching people to be conscious enough to transform trauma into medicine. Think about your biggest setback this year. Western logic says that was a problem to avoid in the future. Emergence logic says that was transformation trying to happen. The question isn't how to prevent it next time. The question is how to consciously participate in what you're becoming. This logic creates something unprecedented. Humans who get stronger under pressure, not just surviving, but actually using disruption as fuel for growth. Next, we'll see how this logic gets tested when everything tries to destroy it. The conflict dynamics. Testing transformation under pressure. Here's where the anti-fragile magic becomes undeniable. These emergence stories weren't created in peaceful times. They were forged under extreme pressure, and they've been tested through centuries of attempted destruction. When colonizers tried to replace indigenous creation stories with biblical creation, something fascinating happened. The stories went underground, but they didn't just survive, they emerged stronger. They weren't just preserved, they were refined, concentrated, made more precise. The attempt to destroy them revealed their essential elements. It separated what was cultural decoration from what was civilizational technology. Think about this. The Lakota emergence story survived the outlawing of ceremonies. It survived the theft of the Black Hills, their literal emergence site. It survived the systematic destruction of buffalo herds. Each attack on the physical manifestations only drove the story deeper into cultural DNA. When Lakota people say mitakuye oyasing, all my relations, they're not reciting poetry, they're activating technology that survived genocide. The conflict revealed something that Western science is only now discovering. The most resilient information isn't stored in static repositories, it's stored in living systems. You can burn books, you can destroy artifacts, you can steal sacred sites. But you cannot kill a story that lives in the hearts and minds of a people. The attempted destruction only proved the story's anti-fragile nature. They got stronger under attack. This has massive implications for how we think about resilience today. Most people try to build systems that resist change, but emergence consciousness does the opposite. It builds systems that use pressure as fuel for evolution. Every indigenous community that's still practicing their culture today, they're living proof that anti-fragile systems work. The pattern is clear. Information that survives in living systems becomes anti-fragile. Information stored in dead systems becomes brittle. Your own life works the same way. The wisdom that lives in your daily practices will survive any crisis. The wisdom that only exists in your head, that's vulnerable. The stories didn't just survive colonization. They revealed something profound about how anti-fragile systems actually work. Next, we'll see how this ancient wisdom is creating something entirely new in our modern world. The new creation. The synthesis happening right now is extraordinary. Indigenous peoples aren't choosing between traditional emergence wisdom and modern reality. They're forging something entirely new. When Indigenous creators go viral on social media, they're not just representing their cultures. They're demonstrating emergence in real time. Every TikTok video that makes traditional practices accessible to global audiences, that's a micro-emergence event. The collision between ancient wisdom and modern technology creates new forms that couldn't exist in either world alone. This synthesis is producing what we might call emergence consciousness. It's a way of being human that expects and navigates constant transformation. Instead of seeking stability and avoiding change, emergence consciousness treats disruption as creative opportunity. Instead of building rigid systems that break under pressure, it builds adaptive systems that evolve through pressure. Here's what's happening. The ancient stories encoded anti-fragile technology. Now that technology is being expressed through digital platforms, modern activism, and contemporary art. Indigenous activists aren't just fighting for rights, they're modeling how to transform oppression into power. Indigenous artists aren't just preserving tradition, they're showing how ancient patterns can create entirely new forms of beauty. Indigenous entrepreneurs aren't just building businesses, they're demonstrating how emergence consciousness creates sustainable abundance. Every successful Indigenous person today is living proof of emergence logic. They're not choosing between being Indigenous or being modern. They're synthesizing both into something more powerful than either alone. This creates humans who thrive in complexity, humans who see change as opportunity, humans who understand that breaking apart is often the beginning of becoming more. The most profound synthesis is this. Indigenous emergence stories aren't just describing how the world was created. They're encoding instructions for how to create worlds. Right now, as our global systems break down, as climate change forces transformation, as artificial intelligence disrupts everything we thought we knew, we need emergence consciousness more than ever. Every person who understands that disobedience can trigger sacred transformation, that breaking apart can lead to becoming more, that individual sacrifice can become collective abundance. That person has internalized anti-fragile technology. The synthesis isn't finished, it's accelerating, and it's creating possibilities that didn't exist before. Now let's talk about how you can apply this emergence consciousness to your own life. Your personal emergence story. Stop thinking of your life challenges as problems to solve. Start seeing them as emergence opportunities, chances to break apart what you've been and forge what you're becoming. Your current life situation, that's your wind cave moment. The pressure you're feeling, the impossible choices you're facing, the old patterns that aren't working anymore. This isn't failure. This is emergence trying to happen. The question isn't how to avoid the transformation. The question is how to consciously participate in it. Here's what Indigenous emergence wisdom offers. 3 practical technologies you can use right now. You don't emerge alone. You emerge in connection with all your relations. Your family, your community, your ancestors, even your challenges. They're all part of your emergence process. Stop trying to handle everything by yourself. Start asking, who are my relations in this transformation? How can we emerge together? Being forced to change isn't punishment. It's sacred process. When life breaks apart what you've built, when your plans get disrupted, when you're pushed out of your comfort zone, that's not random suffering. That's emergence consciousness, recognizing you're ready for the next level. What you release in service of becoming more becomes medicine for your community. Your struggles aren't just personal, they're producing wisdom that others need. Your transformation isn't just about you, it's about what you'll be able to give after you emerge. Every Indigenous person living their culture today is proof that emergence consciousness works. Their existence is evidence that humans can become anti-fragile. Their joy is demonstration that thriving through pressure isn't just possible. It's the most natural thing in the world when you understand that creation is always happening. The emergence stories aren't mythology, they're instruction manuals. And the instruction is simple. Dare to emerge, the transformation is sacred. Your ancestors are waiting to see who you become. Right now, think about your biggest challenge, the thing that's forcing you to change. What if that's not a problem? What if that's emergence trying to happen? What if you stopped resisting and started participating? What if you asked, what is this transformation trying to create? How can I conscious partner with this process? You already have emergence consciousness inside you. It's been encoded in your DNA for thousands of years. The stories aren't giving you something new. They're reminding you of something you already know. Creation is always happening, always inviting you to emerge into who you're becoming next.